7. I'm Autumn Landowski on a Wednesday.
Hi, everyone. Matt Bove here.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Midweek.
Midweek. It was been a crazy first start to the week because we had the Seattle trip and we're kind of just getting used to, once again, switching the clock. The time. I always think it's easier going from West Coast to East Coast than I think it is when you go ahead, right? So I always think it's easier to just kind of play catch up for a couple of days as opposed to like if you go over to Europe or do something like that.
That's so difficult. And I commend you for coming right back to work and getting on the saddle, because going 3 hours in whichever direction is not easy to do. Yeah. And usually you're doing it as a vacation and you're giving yourself a little leeway to get back. You're doing it for work. You're, it's almost like whiplash and then you're back.
Well, that's why we just dove right into the deep end of the pool. We took the red eye. So the Bills played on Sunday and I finished working and then we drove to the airport, got on a plane, flew back in the middle of the night from Seattle to Chicago, then went from Chicago to Buffalo, went home for a couple hours and slept, and then came into work to do our show on Monday, leading the charge. So Monday was a blur. Tuesday punched me in the face. Now we're feeling a little bit better, but we are still also just very much like, what day is it? What is happening? And where even are we right now?
You got to get on top of your game because then comes Halloween. But speaking of, since we're right on the cusp, have you ever heard of Beggars Night?
Nah, I have not. Well, I've heard of it, but I never partook in it or really know anything about it other than the night before Halloween.
I wonder if this is something that happens more than just like a Western New York thing. You know how sponge candies, Western New York, there are certain things that are just, pertain to us.
Just Western New York.
I wonder if Beggars Night is just a us thing, because when I was growing up, I lived in Buffalo and our neighborhood did Beggars Night. So it was great. My whole family from other parts of, they were, in suburbs and stuff, would come to our neighborhood. We would meet at my house and we would do Beggars Night there. Then my aunt on Halloween, who lived in West Seneca, we would all go to her house. And then we would do Halloween at her house. So we had 2 nights of trick-or-treating.
Do you think it's a city thing because you grew up in the city? Because I don't remember ever having a Beggars Night out in the suburbs where I grew up.
I don't know. I think there are some neighborhoods that are not in Buffalo that have Beggars Night. I feel like they're a little more hush hush now. I think people don't kind of let the cat out of the bag, and the ones that know about it, know to go there. But I wonder which, but I feel like an area of like Cheektowaga maybe still has it. Maybe even Buffalo too. I'm not sure.
What do you think is your favorite Western New York thing? If that truly is a Western New York thing, and I don't know the answer to that, but what's your favorite like Western New York thing that we understand that other people might not understand or would be confused by? Because I feel like we've got a lot of Buffaloisms that we kind of partake in here that a lot of other places would have no idea about.
Well, I don't know if this one is or not, but I think it's very silly, and I think it's true as well. We don't really know street names. We go by whatever's on the corner, some type of monument or hang a right, it's City Hall or whatever it is. Like you don't really know what the streets are. Mine, if that makes sense.
Well, there's also the putting the in front of everything, right? Like if you wanted to take Interstate 90, nobody in their right mind from Western New York would say, "Oh, you take Interstate 90."
Yeah, you take 90.
You take the 90. You take the 90. You take the 190. There's the 290, the 33, the 198. Like nobody just calls them. It almost feels wrong to call them without the.
Yeah,
like you would
can't.
never. I would never say,
There's
you take 198 to 33. Like that just sounds wrong.
Now the one thing, the one street name that I will not put the in front of anymore is 104.
I don't even know where.
So
104
is way up north.
Way up north,
like right almost along Niagara and Orleans County line along Lake Ontario.
Okay.
Well, guess who's from up there?
I don't know.
Our news director.
Oh, really? Okay, so you can't say.
Yeah, he goes, no, it's 104, not the. You don't say, don't say the. I said, okay, I won't.
You're like, okay, I won't do
so
that.
So it's been in my mind ever since. Don't say that.
Niagara County, right?
Yeah.
Any other Buffalo things that you're like, oh, I just love that, or oh, I don't understand why we do that?
I don't know. Are you thinking of anything?
I mean, a lot of it's food related.
I was going to say sponge candy, saying pop.
What's Alyssa going to say? Go Bills.
Go
Bills is
yeah,
being
it's like a hello.
Yeah.
if people don't say it back, you're like, you're not a true Bills fan.
Well, let me tell you, I get a weird one with Go Bills. This is opening up a can of worms. When because you travel,
Yes.
and when you see Bills fans on the road, of course everybody says Go Bills. Doing the job that I do, impartial, take yourself out of it. If I've ever seen you in public and you've said Go Bills to me and I just freeze up and get awkward, it's because I don't feel like I can say it back. Like,
right.
it's just because you have to be impartial.
You're supposed to be reporting on the Bills. Even
Alyssa
though you're from here,
Alyssa just put her head back.
You're from
so
here.
I'm always,
your dad's a diehard fan.
So,
you grew up a fan, but you have to be impartial.
So I always just say, like, oh, I hope you have a great time at the game, or I hope you have a great trip, or something like that. But there's a lot of times when I freeze up, and my wife was with me on this trip to Seattle, and she even brought it up a couple of times too, because in the airport, when you cover the Bills, there's a lot of people. I'm very, very fortunate. A lot of people listen to the podcast. They watch us here on Channel 7, and they'll be like, Go Bills. And you're always just like, oh, thanks so much for watching, or like, oh, thanks for listening.
Yeah, that's got to feel a little
weird.
awkward.
It's weird, but I always feel like I want to. If the fact that you're recognizing and acknowledging me, I want to reciprocate and show that I appreciate that. But I can't do it by just responding Go Bills,
right? Which
is a really weird dynamic and something that I'm, think people probably think I'm crazy or being rude, and I don't want people to think that.
Well, and with us in this business, we understand that, but they definitely don't. Like they probably want to view you as a fan.
Yeah, for sure. And doing my job, I understand that it's a very specific thing, and there's a lot of like intricacies to it that most people probably would never even think of. So if you've ever seen me in public and you've said Go Bills to me at the grocery store, at the airport, wherever it is, I promise I'm not being rude. I'm just trying to be journalistically proper.
Now your wife and your daughter have to say it back instead of you.
Exactly. So I always look at Andrea, I like nudge her. I'll be like, okay, you can say it, you can say it. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. All right, so Alyssa, our fantastic producer, printed out this list of Would You Rathers, and Autumn just groaned. So I said, why did you groan? And she told me, because I don't have a good answer for this one. Can you please read the Would You Rather and then provide an explanation?
Okay. Would you rather always be stuck in an endless loop of mandatory work training videos, or in non-stop company-wide team building exercises? Oof.
What are we talking about? Team building exercises? Is this like The Office where they go to the park and they do different games, or is this like?
I think it could be any of that stuff. Everyone has to go in and say a word that goes with the first letter of your name.
Now, the thing that's a little tricky.
Balls.
The thing that's a little tricky here is that this is our job. So I really don't want to say anything bad about the mandatory training videos, because, you can do those while also doing something else. But I know we're not supposed to. So I think I would pick the training with the team. I think that you can, you've got friends that you work with, like you can make fun of that.
I suppose if it's nonstop while you're supposed to be working, sure.
Yeah.
If it's something that's added on to it to make you stronger and all that, it's like, we're good.
You know what we would rather do?
Great team.
What we're continuing to do, right? Like this. All right, welcome back, everyone. Autumn just made my day with what she was saying during the commercial break. This is so exciting.
You want me to say it?
Yeah, say it, because I don't think people most people probably know. I just have no idea what's going on.
So this Saturday night, you may change your clocks back, meaning you get an extra hour of sleep,
which is incredible.
It will be nice.
You know who used to hate this night?
Who?
My grandmother, Norma Vaselli, God rest her soul. She did not sleep. She sat in the same chair for like the last 3 years of her life. We all went over to her. She was like, now I have to stay up and be awake because she wasn't sleeping, right? She hated this one. She loved when the clocks went forward.
Really?
So yeah, she loved it. She loved it. But the only downfall with this is, does it get darker an hour sooner every night, right? So now the sunset is what, 6:30, 6:45-ish?
Earlier than that, but yeah, it's a little after 6.
So we're going to get to the point where it's like
a little after 5.
That is crazy.
That's a little before 5.
That is always crazy to me. I always remember it's really weird if you work a unique shift. If you get into work and it's kind of dark outside, and then when you leave work, it's dark outside, that feels like when you don't see the light of day, that's always a little bit creepy.
It's a little dark and then it's darker.
Yes,
you don't
exactly.
get the in between. But I wonder how, I always feel it's almost split 50-50 when you ask people if they want to keep the time change, if they want to get rid of it, because us falling back is standard time. So this is what it normally would or should be.
Yeah.
Is us when we're falling back. So just imagine that. So being Beggars Night and Halloween, you have the sun setting at 5 o'clock opposed to a little after 6. So now if you want the little ones to go out before it's dark out, you're going at 4:15, 4:30.
Yeah. Why do they do this again? This might be more like meteorology.
I think it was to help with.
Is it with farming, right? It has something to do with farm. Alyssa's not in her head. Farming.
With farming.
Yeah.
You get the extended light during the summer months. But
how nice is that, by the way?
Living up here,
I know
great.
We're far removed from it. You remember Jenna Caleri, who we used to work with for a long time?
Yes.
So Jenna Caleri, she got married in Michigan, and where she was born in Buffalo, and then she moved to Michigan. I forget the name of the town, but it was all the way on the west coast of Michigan. Okay. So it's as far as you can get before you get into before the time change. So where she grew up in the summer, the sun didn't set some nights until like 10 o'clock. So I remember talking to her dad. Her dad and mom live on a golf course out there. He would legitimately go play 9 holes of golf. Now, 9 holes of golf usually takes most people about 2 hours. He would go play 9 holes of golf at like 8:15 at night. Yeah. And he would get it in before the weather or before the sun would set. And then he would go to bed and he would go and start his next day. And to me, that was unbelievable. The concept of that is goals for sure. That
could be after you put the baby to bed.
Well,
you're not even missing.
That's what I mean.
Because
right now, I think for him, it was probably, listen, I want to be around. I want to be present with the kids. And then I want to be able to go get my 9 holes of golf in if I'm going to live on a golf course. So I might just have to like move to Michigan or something because it sounds like they've got it figured out there. But I do. That is my favorite thing about the summer is the late sunsets. Like 9:15, the sun is setting. You're hanging outside. You're with your friends. That is one of the things I definitely miss the most about summer.
Yeah, and then I guess the sun comes up an hour earlier in the morning in the winter, but it just gets so short no matter what. We don't really have that much daylight.
Yeah.
But also something to think about where we live, being so far north, we get that extended amount of time. When you get closer to the equator, it's almost 12 hours in any direction. You have 12 hours night and 12 hours day because of where you are. So it's usually by 6 p.m. the sun sets near the equator.
The talk about the summer is making me in my head miss summer a little bit, but at the same time,
it feels like summer outside.
It has felt so. This fall has been so amazing, and fall has always been my favorite. I really think we are now in the absolute peak of my favorite time of year. I would say October. Well, let's say mid-September to the day after Christmas is absolutely my favorite time of year. I think that for some reason, the temperature, I know we'll get a couple storms mixed in, and I totally understand that, but I love just the holiday season, what's going on. I love that, there's football going on. Hockey season has started.
I like that. Of everything.
I like that.
I really do.
I like that so much more than, to me, the 3 months of the year that I just can't figure out, and I think a lot of people probably agree, January, February, March. Those 3 months to me just drag on so much. I know you get the weird outlier days in the middle, but it just feels like it's all just a blur and it's one thing.
Well, I also think there's not much in that time frame.
Sure.
As in, kids go back to school, then you have Halloween, then you have Thanksgiving, then you have Christmas, then you have New Year's. Like that all happens in those 3 months.
You know what has been a sneaky the Bills getting good has been awesome for a lot of reasons, but it extends football season kind of into late January.
Right.
If they were to ever make it to a Super Bowl again, the Super Bowl this year is February 9th, right? Like that takes one of those months, fills it with a ton of excitement, and then you go basically halfway into February. And then if they won, and I know everybody, but if they did, then you'd have a parade, you'd have all this stuff. It would be mid-February. It would be Valentine's Day by the time you would basically have to start thinking about the winter. Oh my gosh, people would need
February would just be a month of vacation.
February would be a month of just partying nonstop if they were actually against it. But that has been a nice thing. And I think you take that for granted because for all of these years growing up, the Bills were bad. And their season would be
already done
on December 29th or January 2nd.
And then nobody would even be going to the games because they didn't even want to watch them.
And for these last couple of years, they've won. The last 5 years, they've won their first playoff game every single year. So, for the years that they've won the division. So they've at least gone into mid-January. And then I feel like everybody's in shock for a week after they get eliminated. And then that basically takes us to February. So if they keep winning, I think that kind of just extends the good part of the year at least a little bit more.
Yeah, you would think so. You need a little bit of good vibes when it gets to 20 below feeling sometimes. You need something to boost the morale through the winter.
All right, we'll try and end this episode of Studio 7 with some good vibes on the other side of the break. So, the weather has been amazing, obviously. So we haven't had to really deal with a lot of this.
Right.
Would you rather drive through heavy rain or snow is another one of our would you rathers. I'm very adamant about this, by the way.
Me too. It would be rain hands down.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Snow, I hate driving in the snow, even as somebody from Western New York, even as somebody who has experience driving in the snow, I still despise it.
I love to drive in the snow if you have the right. Really, it's all about your tires. It doesn't even matter about your car. Especially if you have snow tires on, it's a big help. Now, don't drive like a moron.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't do that. But you could have a lot of fun driving in the snow. And again, I would rather drive in rain than drive in snow. But what makes it completely horrendous in snow is when you cannot see. Like there are times where it rains so hard you can't see, but rarely is it lasting that long, and rarely do we have it that heavy. Yeah, where snow is just blinding, and I swear I could see better with my eyes closed. Like I can envision what's around me, opposed to trying to think about where I am on a road.
It's a really bad place to live if you don't like driving in the snow.
What are you going to say?
I was going to say Grand Island because you have to go over a bridge to get there, and that's what I do. And you want to talk about 30 seconds of your life where you are just white knuckling the wheel. Oh my goodness gracious. And then you have a child who you are not responsible for.
Oh yeah.
She is in the back seat. I am just sitting there. And I can tell you, sometimes you're just thinking like, say a quick prayer, just get over this bridge. Yeah, everything is going to be fine. And then,
that's totally terrifying. I thought you were going to make fun of me for living in like the snow belt and be like, where you live.
Yeah, well, that too, because you choose to live where it snows a lot. I'm avoiding it. I just have to deal with the bridge for those 30 seconds.
Yeah, honestly, believe it or not, we're kind of in a very sweet spot where sometimes we don't get it. We're just outside of where it hits everybody.
Yeah,
but I still have to drive through it.
See this invisible line right in the middle of the desk? This is the South Towns, North Towns line.
Yeah, that's right.
Welcome back. Happy Beggars Night to those of you who
Yes.
celebrate, like Autumn was explaining earlier. What are the Halloween plans initially?
Initially, we are going to a friend's house because well, not my friend, but my daughter's friend,
That
because
is so
she's in
adorable.
kindergarten and she's got
Friends?
kindergarten friends.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, so they're going to do a little trick or treating together
Yeah.
for a little quick bout, and then we're going over my sister-in-law's. We've done it for 17 years. I call my first set of kids. They're all
Yeah.
kind of grown up, and now my second set is kind of growing up behind them, Natalia and her one cousin. So I can't wait. It's such a fun time.
Understanding we are still 24 hours away.
Yeah.
Preliminary weather, how is it looking? What are we expecting tomorrow?
Things are, I mean, it's going to be very warm, record probably breaking.
Oh, like because of how warm it's going to be?
How warm it's going to be.
Wow.
But it's also going to come with gusty winds.
Sure.
And we'll be watching the front that comes through. Looks a little bit later into the evening. So maybe that second half you might deal with rain, that 8-9 o'clock hour, possibly we're dealing with something there.
Yeah.
But the early ones, the early kids, before the sun goes down or right around the sun going down, we're not dealing with any rain. So looking pretty good.
I kind of
7 to 9.
The warm Halloweens are always so clutch because then you don't have to hide the costume, right? Like I remember growing up, if it was cold, my mom would put the coat over the costume.
Then you didn't know what they were.
Then you didn't know what they were, or you would have to put the coat on and the costume over
and then
top
you're like,
of it.
Stay puffed.
And then you the scene in Christmas Story when he's got all the coats on, Ralph, and he's like, I can't put my arms down. Like that's how I felt like on a lot of Halloweens. So
or the umbrellas.
We'll talk about this more tomorrow, but do you have a Halloween candy that you would go to?
Okay. I've got a little bit of everything. And before I had a kid, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I just thought of the candy that I liked. That way, if there were some left over, it wasn't going to waste.
Yeah,
I
sure.
was going to eat it.
Sure.
So I am a little bit extra. I do. I have a bowl of chocolate because my daughter loves chocolate. Then I have a bowl of like the gummy stuff because I love the gummy stuff.
Okay.
And then I have a bowl of like Doritos, like there's little tiny Dorito snack packs. And
you meant just like a bowl of Doritos?
No, yeah,
like
so
an
they could
open bowl of Doritos? And I'm like, what kid
No,
would come up and just
no,
stick their hand
they're
in a
the-
bowl of chips?
they're the tiniest. I should bring one in. They're the tiniest little snack packs. They're Doritos and the puff balls.
Yeah.
So I'll have those 3 out because the little puffs, like that's what little kids can have.
Sure.
And then depending on what your kids eat or what they can have, a lot of kids can't have the gummy stuff. So the chocolate's the way to go. So I've got a little bit of everything.
Wow, see, that's very smart. See, I don't have a little bit of everything. We'll have some regular chocolate candy. We'll have like Reese's and Kit Kats. And I think there might be some Starburst also mixed in. And I think that's pretty much it. I do know there's a couple houses in the neighborhood that will do apples, and I think that that's a really good idea. I know that when I was younger, if I got an apple, I was like, oh, there's an apple.
Yeah.
But I do understand that there's, a health factor to that, obviously. There's probably going to be, our daughter's 1.5 years, right? Like, we're going to be picking out what she gets unless she just sticks her hand in there and just throws it all into the bag. Last year was interesting. Last year we had to, now the thing we're running into with our daughter is she is at the age where everything is she wants to do it on her own. So when we go on a walk, she says, walking, and she wants to go walk. And then the thing that's funny now is she'll get to a spot and then she'll just spin around. She's resetting. So last year when we went trick-or-treating, we were carrying her. I was carrying her from door to door, and she would just kind of like sit there and her eyes would get big. And my wife would be like, this is Elia. It's her first time trick-or-treating. And everybody was, oh, she is so adorable. But now she's going to kind of lead the way.
Oh, yes, she will.
So I don't know exactly what Thursday is going to look like because I don't know what she's going to want to do or how much energy she's going to have or what her tolerance is going to be once she's done walking, if we can then put her in the stroller or if she's just going to lose her mind.
No. She'll want the stroller, so bring it.
Yeah.
You'll probably not go more than a half an hour. And if you're with other people, she'll just sit in her little stroller while you keep going if you want to, or you head back to the house. And it being as nice or as warm as it's going to be.
Sure.
You know, you're not fighting the elements to be outside either. So it's going to be a really nice day.
Are we going to have this for a little while now? Are we going to be on this trend of warm weather? Or does it like punch us in? No?
It's definitely a trick because the day after.
Ayo, professional broadcaster over here.
But I did want to talk a little bit more about candy as well, because on Tuesdays, Dr. Turkovich comes in.
Yeah.
So I asked him, hey, what is a good clutch candy for kids? Now, I'm using the term candy very loosely here. He said popcorn.
Yeah. I mean,
now, he also had some stipulations on this popcorn.
yeah. Extra salted, extra. Yeah.
Yeah. It can't be movie theater popcorn. You know, the big tub of butter and salt. Skinny Pop's the way to go.
Okay. I mean, I think
so. Maybe next year. I did that for the kids in her school.
You did popcorn?
Yeah, because they had the Skinny Pop bags and they had like little monsters on it.
Yeah.
So I gave them that, and then I also gave them a little ring pop. So there was candy technically in it. And then they had little trinkets, but then Skinny Pop.
You know, it was clutch. We went to one of those trunk or treat events a couple weeks ago, and there was a lot of people who were giving out arts and crafts. And I thought that was a super cool idea because you're getting so much candy. I think what's the difference between you go in your neighborhood and you trick or treat and you get 8 Kit Kat bars or 7 Kit Kat bars, but then you get like a little art and craft that you can do. So I thought that was a really good idea that a couple different people came up with. So I don't know if that's just common knowledge, and I haven't had a kid yet, and now I do. So I'm going to start to see what people are doing. Yeah. I'm basing everything off of trick or treating, which would have been for me 20 years ago. So It's been a long time. So I'm just getting back. Big difference. I'm getting back into the game. So like we said, happy Beggars Night. If you are somebody who is going to be participating in that, shout out Alyssa. She said it's in Ohio, Idaho, and Western New York.
Iowa. Not Idaho.
Not meant to mess up my I states. I apologize. For Autumn Lewandowski, I'm Matt Bove. Thanks for watching Studio 7.